What's up, Trunk Slayers? It's Monday. That means it's Spicy Monday. We're going to talk a little bit today about automation, specifically RPA tools, because there's a conference going on for that right now, and it reminded me I've had this topic on my list for a while, and we'll get into that in a second. But it was just Father's Day, and I just want to say happy Father's Day to every hopefully happy father of a little home lab server or a media server or whatever little baby server you have at home that you're you know what? Happy Server Parents Day. Whether you're a proud papa or proud mama of your little baby home server, I hope you had a good weekend, and I hope your child didn't give you too many problems. So let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about why RPA is bullshit and automation is bullshit. No, I'm kidding. That's not what the video is about. But I do want to talk a little bit about how RPA and automation are not the same thing as AI, and they're also not fucking magic. And you need to kind of understand where it came from and what the purpose was, so that you don't do that thing where you go and buy yet another tool that you hope will save my business that doesn't do shit. So let's get into it. So for those that don't know, I've mentioned a few times in my videos I went to school for electrical engineering, but before I went to school for electrical engineering, I actually went to school for manufacturing engineering and spent about a year in the program before I realized I wasn't smart enough. Manufacturing engineering is quite literally the setup of workflows to produce something in a factory in a samesies way. And I bring this up because that's where RPA came from. RPA stands for Robotic Process Automation, and tools in our space, most commonly like Roost, are an example of this. There are others, though. I would argue that there is probably some other pretty popular tools could fall into this general category. I could see maybe 𝕤𝕤𝕤𝕤 falling into this category. I could see Intune, parts of it falling into this category. Whatever. You get the point. And the whole thing with RPA came about as an actual product category sometime in the late 90s and the early 2000s to solve two challenges, really. So we already had this thing called BPO, business process outsourcing. That's where you hire a person, and that person basically learns how to do a task at your company, and then they either document the workflow for this task or otherwise basically automate it. Automated in that it's still a person doing it, so that a person in your office doesn't have to do it. A great classic example of BPO is the steno pool at your sort of ambiguous 1950s, 1960s sexism riddled, favorite movie workplace, where you had the large pool of mostly women who literally all they did was type up notes. That is a form of BPO. So we've had this concept in business for a while that there are tasks that don't maybe require a thinking job, but yet at the same time need decision making to repeatedly churn out results. And then on the other side of things, we had industries, mostly the automotive industry, where they realized very early on, everybody's familiar with Henry Ford, that the more you could standardize and automate the workflow, and this harkens back to my year of manufacturing engineering, the more you can standardize that workflow, you can cut costs, get a repeatable process, have a more scalable product, yada. You all understand all that. So RPA is basically saying I have BPO needs and I have sort of automated assembly needs, maybe not literally, and I want to marry them together and use these new computer things to find a way to have some sort of script or robot do it for me. And I give this definition because nothing I just said is AI. Okay? And I think that's important because that word gets thrown around a lot and it gets used a lot. It's one of those fun, sexy, sciencey words like quantum. Like quantum that gets thrown around a lot. And while we're on this video, very quickly, there are no fucking quantum computers on this planet. Despite what you've been told, it's not possible. Because if you make a quantum computer and you observe that it's quantum, it's no longer quantum. So there's no way to know that we have any quantum computers. So when you see like a magazine, especially a consumer magazine, be like, oh, such and such has developed quantum computing. No, they have not. They've developed what might be a quantum computer, but if anybody actually goes and checks, it won't be. And I go slightly off on that rant because I think we've sort of overblown actual AI with automation scripts that we call AI into one being one giant category of AI. RPA is not AI. RPA may use generative technology to be smarter about how you define the scripts. But why this is really important is AI, artificial intelligence, does your thinking for you. Yeah, these tools don't. You still have to do your thinking. And once you've done your thinking, these tools can go ahead and automate that thinking. They can make that very streamlined and amazing and beautiful and sexy, but they're not magic. And that's kind of what brings us to today's rant. Bringing back this idea of RPA, robotic process automation, and thinking about it in the context of an assembly line, because I think that is, if anyone here plays Factorio, let's get on Steam together. Bringing it back in that assembly line mindset, I think is the best visual aid for anybody who's thinking about this. If you think about cars, most cars are made in factories on an assembly line that pump out the same car, but not all cars are. And there's a reason for that. And that reason is important because your MSP likely isn't in a position to be Toyota or Ford or whatever, Subaru. I'm a Subaru person. You probably aren't there with most, if not all, of your business. And so you might not really be as ready for that automated assembly line as you think you are. And I think that's where a lot of folks get caught quite by accident in this predatory cycle of now you've bolted yet another cost center onto your MSP that requires yet another set of humans to run it. And you weren't really ready to do it to begin with. So one of the things that a lot of MSPs, a lot of SMBs, but a lot of MSPs like to say is that what they offer is white glove. And I've said in other videos that no, you don't. What you offer, your pizzeria. But yet you all still stand here defiant that you offer, Dean, I offer white glove. My MSP is different. So I'm going to take you at your word for a minute. Given that so many MSPs insist that they are different and what they are doing is special, bespoke, customized per client, can't just be priced on their website, requires an assessment, blah, 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 all this shit. Right there should be your first red flag that, well, you can't RPA that because everybody get that? Sticking to that back with the car thing. So if you look at a car, for example, like a Ferrari or a Lambo or some other low production model car, are pieces of the car built on an automated factory? Yes, pieces of it are, but the actual car itself isn't. It's built by hand. It's assembled by hand. The panels are aligned by hand. Everything is ultimately put together by hand. And so those brands will say it's because it's a very high-end white glove process and their experts need to go and tune everything. But as anybody who's ever been around, if you watch when Tesla first launched and Tesla was all by hand, it's same thing. Any sort of like high-end vanity vehicle like that, like, well, by hand usually doesn't equate to actual fancy. It equates to piece of shit. Every single one of them slightly different. And these upmarket brands have done a very good job of taking that everyone's a little bit different and presenting it to you as evidence of value-added craftsmanship. But really what it boils down to is they don't make them on a factory line because they can't. They can't because they don't make enough of them and they don't plan them out well enough to be able to set up the tooling, which costs millions of dollars, to produce every part in a repeatable, definable way and then get an assembled finished product. That's why those things are made by hand. It's not because hand craftsmanship is better. It's not because hand craftsmanship makes something higher end. And in fact, it often doesn't, because, you know, people made it. People suck. We're terrible at stuff. Robots are way better than we are at making stuff, especially high quality stuff. So don't fall into the trap of thinking that like mass produced overseas shit that you have around your house means that mass production can only make shit. Mass produced stuff can be freaking amazing. The thing is, we conflate those two and we confuse those two a lot with consumer goods, and we do the same thing in business. So given that so many of you insist that you're different, insist that you're white glove, insist that you do it by hand, that it's special, that it's custom, right away you're probably not set up. If your MSP was making a car, you're not set up to go make that car in an assembly line, but yet you want to go out and spend a bunch of money to buy a factory and a bunch of tooling to churn out parts that are going to be exactly the same every time, except you don't do that. And that's exactly the trap you got to be careful of when you jump into RPA and automation. I mention all of this because for the most part, the vendors that are selling these products, they are not really selling you the dream. It's for most of these vendors are actually being pretty clear about how their product works and the tactical applications of it and the work that you have to do in order to get the product to be useful. The thing is, most of you don't listen to that and you just hear what you want to hear. And I guarantee you that there's probably half the attendees at this conference think that they're going to be buying a piece of fucking magic. And my friends, you are not buying a piece of magic. You are buying a tool category that is going to take work and planning and is designed to take a process that you already have, that you already execute in a BPO style, very much the same way every time. And now you're going to automate it and have scripting take care of it. Now, if that sounds like you and your process, by all means, you go sign up for that RPA tool. You go sign up for that automation tool. There are so many, and a lot of them are really cool. But if that doesn't sound like you, this is not a magic product category. It's not going to fix it for you. I made a video a while back about outsourcing, where I talked about that you want to delegate, not abdicate. And same thing applies here. You figure this RPA tool, this automation tool, whatever it is that you're bolting on, a lot of us tend to have this methodology, honestly, because this industry has gotten very good at allowing it, where we kind of want to go find the easy bake oven version of a tool, meaning that we do want the tool to work. I mean, the easy bake oven is an oven. It's a 40-watt light bulb, but it's an oven. But we also want it to come with everything we need to be successful using it, all the ingredients, tools, and step-by-step instructions that, if are followed, will result in a perfect, I don't know, whatever the fuck you make in the easy bake oven, a brownie. So it'll result in the perfect brownie every time. And that's kind of not happened ever in this space with any product I can think of. I've yet to meet one where you don't have to put in some work and kind of know what you're doing. But RPA and automation tools specifically kind of have this insidious, sneaky element to them, totally by accident, which is because, so if you think of the RPA tool, let's say like Roost, as the easy bake oven, well, there's this whole community of people who have developed basically scripts or workflows. And it's very easy to think, oh, well, that's a recipe that must include everything necessary. If I simply plug that recipe into the easy bake oven, I'll get a perfect brownie. And the thing is, not really. You kind of still have to source your ingredients properly, and you still need to make sure that the brownie that's produced is the brownie you actually need. And so, just the further word of caution, when you are looking at these tools, the fact that there are a lot of community contributed scripts and workflows, that's awesome. And you should look for a product that has a lot of involvement from the community. However, that doesn't mean that's not the magic solution either. It's still only part of it. And if you're at this event and you go up to Brandon from ZenTop. Everybody knows him. You know, red hair, poor man's wish.com John Hammond. Go find him and ask him if you hire ZenTop to implement Roost for you, if you will magically just have successfully automated processes. You know what Brandon's going to tell you? He's going to say, no, that's not how any of this works. So don't forget to have that conversation while you're there about what your actual business outcomes are when you're implementing these tools, because it does take work. You do need to have a repeatable process that you are following already. All you are getting these tools for is because you would like to automate them. They are not magic. They are not going to find processes for you, and they are not going to solve people problems. If people don't follow your processes, people aren't going to follow your processes when a fucking robot is executing them any better. And I just think it's important to remind everybody of that today on this wonderful Spicy Monday. These tools, unfortunately, like all your tools, are not magic. You do have to put in some work. I hope that you have an amazing Spicy Monday. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your spice. Please post somewhere. Hashtag it with Spicy Monday. And I'd also love to hear kind of some, reality check stories for the rest of the audience that's watching this about times that you went in with an automation product and realized halfway through that, oh shit, I actually have to know what I want to automate and kind of how I want to automate it. And this isn't just magic. It won't just do it all for me. Because I think it's important for folks that haven't been down this journey yet to hear that. And you may say that's negative. I don't think it's negative at all. I think what ends up happening is that it allows folks, like just like an example earlier in the video, where I compared Ferrari to Ford or Toyota. Well, Ferrari at this point has made a business decision that they're just not going to go in that direction. Parts of their cars are mass produced for sure, but they've just made a decision. They've been in business for 100 years. They've made the decision at this point that you're not going to get a Ferrari off a factory line. We're just not going to put that effort into developing a factory that only churns out a particular Ferrari. Their reaction to that is, meh, not something we want to do. I think that is incredibly important, my MSP friends, because you don't have to do this. Are a lot of folks who are automating going to be successful? Yes. Is everybody who's automating going to be successful? No. And is everybody who's not automating going to fail? Absolutely not. It's a choice. And I think you need to go into it with intent. You cannot abdicate to it. And if that's how you approach using these tools, ultimately, you're going to have a good time. Have an amazing Spicy Monday, everybody.